AVRant. I'm Tom Andry. I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And we think we're back, technically, tech-wise, computer-wise. It's been a heck of a week as far as snow goes in my area, so I don't know. I'm frazzled already before we even start.
Okay, well, the video seems to be recording on my side so far. So we will see. I'm kind of off to the left. I mean, I know I'm supposed to be off to the left, but I mean, I feel like...
You're way off.
It's way... Yeah.
You look fine on my screen. We'll find out how it works out.
I do not look fine. I am a goofy-looking man. I know that. Lord. Don't try to sugarcoat it. Yeah. So apparently what happened, like, literally seconds before the podcast with Gary Kubian is my hard drive took a massive dump and died.
Yeah.
So I don't know how, don't know why. I sent it off to, I think I dropped it off Saturday evening. Mm-hmm. That sounds right. I think I dropped it off Saturday evening at the FedEx place with the box that they had shipped me Saturday morning. No, it couldn't have been. Anyways, doesn't matter. Saturday or Sunday, it was something around there. I got the box maybe Monday. By the time I got it back like Wednesday or Thursday. So it was
quick turnaround at least.
Really, really, really quick turnaround. Very happy with Apple for that. Was not so happy that I had never backed anything up ever.
Uh-huh.
That being said, I was able to save all the files that I had on the drive. Because I could still access it. I don't know why the computer couldn't access it, but I could access it as just putting it into slave mode, basically.
Yeah.
And could get all the files off of it. Got all that done. Then I was able to reload them all, which was great, except that when I started up the computer for the first time after getting it again, I had no way of getting all the programs and stuff, so I had to take my old computer, which had all my old files on it, and imported all of them. And then I wrote over the top of all of that, all the new stuff. Well, Dropbox kind of had a spaz attack when that happened, and I lost some stuff. But the glory of Dropbox is if it all got deleted because you just accidentally deleted it all, in the last 30 days you can go to Dropbox and say, you accidentally deleted, it literally said 999 plus files. I'm like, I would like those back. Thank you very much.
Man.
Whoop, and there it came. So no problems there. Got everything back. The only thing that's not really working is my video recording software, which I realized seconds before this podcast that the activation code was in one of my old emails, which is lost to the annals of time. So that I have to contact them, and they're usually responsive, so they'll get back to me, and we'll have that fixed by next week. But hopefully you have some video to watch this week. We shall
Fingers crossed.
See. All right. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can also go to www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. To contact Rob and I individually or as part of all this other stuff, you can email us at rob@avrant, tom@avrant, Twitter @firstreflect for Rob, @avrant_Tom for me, and @Austin Pont for Austin. Our producer, who puts together our questions and question lists and stuff like that. He has his own podcast. It's the We Watch Movies podcast. It's actually a podcast about working 14-hour days and having no time to watch movies.
Yeah.
So it's the We Watch Movies podcast, but they actually talk about all the movies they would like to watch but cannot because they work too much.
I can commiserate.
I can. I don't want to hear it from you single peoples, okay? I have 3 sons, and they all have to be everywhere all the time. This Saturday was awful. I was like, oh, well, on Saturday, it's no big deal. I don't have to do anything. Oh, no. I left the house at 9 a.m. I didn't get back until 5, and I was still expected to cook dinner. Everybody was looking at me like, what do we have for dinner, Dad? I'm like,
air.
Freezer.
Air sandwich.
Yeah, what my friends used to say in Mississippi, air biscuits and wind pie is what you're having. So, believe me, I don't want to hear about how you don't have time for movies, Mr. Single Guy, but you do work quite a bit, so I'm not disparaging you. I'm just saying kids suck. That's all I'm saying. I want to thank our listeners of the week. This week we had some donations from some of our listeners. They donated by going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, where they can leave a PayPal donation. And Andrew, Joshua, and Mark all did that. So thank you, Andrew, Joshua, and Mark.
Yes, Andrew, Joshua, Mark, thank you so much for the donations.
And thank you, PayPal, for having an interface where I can go back and easily look at that since all those emails got lost. Joshua also wanted to let us know that he purchased the VTF3 Mark V HP and told them it was because of us. He also told his wife that we recommended a door to their basement, and she, I don't think, approved of that one.
So she didn't care, which I would take as a great thing, because if she doesn't care, go ahead and build the door.
I hope so. I hope that's what it is. I hope that's what it is. Mark also wants to thank us for all the information provided throughout the podcast and outside of the podcast. He says AVRant is the voice of reason, so thank you, Mark, for that.
Thank you.
Now, if you cannot support the podcast financially, that's perfectly understandable. Though that money goes into our coffers to help pay for all of our hosting fees. I was telling my wife, we were discussing the things that we pay out of pocket to make this podcast happen, and apparently I have never ever linked up the podcast. I was like, we have money in our coffers, we could maybe do something with that, and she's like, yeah, you kind of owe me. And she went through the laundry list. I'm like, oh, okay, so apparently I'm not as in the black as I thought I was. I thought I had gotten to the black. Apparently very red still. You would imagine that 9 years of podcasting with almost no income does accrue a little bit of debt, but that's okay. That's the way this works. Anyways, that's pretty much what we're paying for at this point. But also things that we really need and hosting fees and that sort of thing. So at least we're not out of pocket anymore. We have. She's not charging us interest. So that's a good thing. Terry supported the podcast by ordering a Marantz SR6011 from Accessories for Less and let him know it's because of us. Bob tweeted EMP Tech while thanking us for recommending them. He says the R56 Center and 55 Towers are mind-blowing for the money. Dave F. ordered the ultra-low profile projector ceiling mount that we recommended to him, and he let directmount.com know that he heard about them from us. And Byron absolutely loves his new SVS Ultra Book speakers, which is great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
He upgraded from the EMP Tech speakers, and he still thinks they're a tremendous value and highly recommends them, but he thinks the SVS Ultras are in a different class, which I would expect from the price. And he left a review on SVS's website mentioning us. So thank you. I have to scroll back up. Terry, Bob, David, and Byron.
Yeah, Terry, Bob, David, and Lieutenant Commander Byron.
Oh, that's right.
Thank you all so much.
So he must be back in the States if he's getting speakers,
I think so.
right?
Seems
That's great. We'll see him in the after parties one of these days.
Hope so.
Efren, if you're around and you're thinking you're going to go to bed early, do not go to bed early. I need to talk to you about this present I bought for my kids that you told me you're going to help me set up. Efren, I need you. All right. That's how Efren's going to support the podcast, by the way. All right. All of you people that are in cold places, I am sorry that you live in cold places. It is immensely hot in Florida right now. I am in shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm sweating. I am sweating. I have the AC on. It is a Florida Christmas. I'm flip-flops. It's awful. I'm so hot right now. I really want the AC to kick on, and it won't do it. I want to go out there and turn it down, so I apologize for complaining about how hot I am, but it is very hot right now. I'm very hot. All right, in the news, via John on Twitter, the OLED Association confirmed to Forbes that Sony would be launching a 55-inch and a 65-inch OLED TVs in 2017. They will be using LG panels and have already a target retail price of $2,000 to $3,000. $2,000 and $3,000, so $2,000 for the 55 and $3,000 for the 65. They're expected to ship in rather small quantities of 80,000 units and 120,000 units. I wonder which one is going to get the 80.
The 55 inch is 80,000 units. Yeah, which Forbes pointed out. They're like, that seems counter to LG sales figures where the 55 inch sells more than the 65. So I don't know, but this is what Sony's going to do.
We'll see.
Apparently.
So this is more like Sony dipping their toe into the OLED market, and it might indicate a more aggressive prices from LG themselves in the future.
Yeah, since these are Sony's, I mean, they are buying the panels from LG, but if these are the retail prices, that's technically lower than the existing B6 retail prices even. Like, you can buy the B6s right now for less than that because they're on sale. But technically, those prices are lower than the retail B6 prices, which I can't imagine LG is going to let Sony undercut them price-wise. That would seem very odd. So fingers crossed that those
it would be
OLED
odd for
prices
Sony to undercut anybody, to be honest with you. I mean, this is Sony we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Encouraging.
Well, what this means, too, is that they're going to have more capital because they're not selling those at cost to Sony. So they're going to have more capital that they can use to basically to lower their prices. They just ship out the panels, so they don't have to do anything with them. So not even a week went by before Emotiva added even more subwoofers to their lineup. So the Airmotive S10 and S12s were announced. They were already announced, right?
They're already on the website. So yeah,
okay.
S10 and S12 from in the Airmotive series, because they're also calling their base X series S10 and S12. So that is confusing, but nevertheless, Airmotive.
Okay, so wait
X.
a second. Let me see if I got this right. So they have an S10 and S12 subwoofer in the base X line, or basics line, and an S10 and S12 in the Airmotive line.
That is correct.
That is stupid. I would like to talk to somebody at Emotiva and tell them that is dumb.
I know.
And whoever let that go through should have...
Maybe get some more letters or model numbers in there. I'm fine with the 10 and the 12 that describes the driver size.
Why don't you... Thinking of who it is, why doesn't this have like an X10 and X12?
Especially the base X line. Why isn't the base X series like... Why isn't it just the base X10? Why isn't it just that? Well, whatever. S10, S12, both series, Airmotive and base X. But we're talking about Airmotive this week.
So Airmotive ones are cheaper or more expensive than the other ones?
More expensive. The base X is the cheapest. The Airmotives are more expensive.
All right, but there's also going to be an S15, which they've announced, but not really. And that's only in the Airmotive ones?
That's only in the Airmotive, because there's also going to be an S8 in the base X. So the base X has one more model coming that's smaller. The Airmotive series has one more model that's bigger.
All right. Yeah. Whatever. I at this point stop caring. If anybody out there is like, what the heck are they talking about? Exactly.
Emotiva, I think, revels in confusing people with their model names. I think that's like their jam. But we haven't even described what's special about these Airmotive.
Anyways, the S10, the 10-inch driver is $550. It's a little bit less than $500 on sale right now, which, knowing them, was just going to be the price. 350 watts. It's going to go down to 26 hertz at minus 3 dB. Mm-hmm. It is 17 inches by 14 by 16 and 52 pounds.
Yep.
So is this bigger and more expensive?
It's heavier. It plays a little bit lower, as you would expect for costing more.
Yeah. The S12 is $700. It's $629 on sale. 500 watt amplifier, 3 dB. The point is 24 hertz, 23 inches. That's big. 16 and 17, 66 pounds.
So the main thing is these are a single active driver that fires down, and then a passive radiator that is on the front face.
See, it's so funny that we just did that interview with Gary Kubian, and he said the one thing we're never doing is passive radiators. Yeah. I was like, wow, that was like really strong wording. You know?
A little bit more substantial drivers in these Airmotive ones than the base X ones as well. But yeah, that's so. I mean, the base X series is ported. This series is passive radiator, but it's just, a little bit bigger boxes, more amplifier power. Bigger,
I don't like these ones as much, to be honest with you.
They're not the tremendous value. Like the base X series, I'm like, hey, there is a real call for $250, $350 subs. I like that. That kind of gets me excited. These ones, not quite so much. And I mean, $700 for a sub that doesn't even play down to 20 hertz? Really?
I mean, not when there's, I mean, what they're gonna the marketing for this writes itself. This is a subwoofer for music and not for movies. Movies. This is a faster and blah blah blah. Whatever. Whatever. Not excited about these subs. The other ones had something for me. These do not. HDMI LCC has made the HDMI 2.0B official because I hate them so much. It adds support for HLG, which is hybrid log gamma HDR signals, using static metadata. Anything with HDMI 2.0B ports will be backwards compatible, because it better be. Yeah. With all previous HDMI versions, and it's still using an 18 gigabits bandwidth. There's nothing officially saying that HDMI 2.0A can be upgraded to HDMI 2.0B via firmware. Yeah. But we've already seen Sony and LG just demonstrate adding HDL support via firmware, so nobody should panic about this small revision. Yeah, it kind of seems like this is just this could be firmware fix. I mean, they're not changing the bandwidth. They're not changing anything really super
since there's that whole thing where HLG can be translated into an HDR10 signal via a fairly simple algorithm, I'm like, that this should all work out. But nonetheless, if you're hearing HDMI 2.0B, it is a real thing. So whoever is saying that to you is not insane. It does exist.
Yes. And no, it's not something you probably have to wait for. Nor is it something you should have to worry about at this point. So Nathan, Infinite Gary, and Heath all let us know that Oppo sent out emails to people on the waiting list for the UDP 203 Ultra HD Blu-ray player, and they updated their website saying that pre-orders will be starting very soon for $549. He also explicitly mentioned that Dolby Vision will be supported via future firmware update as we suspected.
Yeah, so that's good. Confirmation of Dolby Vision going to be part of that player. $549 is $50 more than the originally anticipated price, but okay, it fits in their lineup. You know, they've still got the Blu-ray player, which is the 103 at $500, and then they have the Ultra HD Blu-ray player, the 203 at $549. So there you go.
You see, did you notice how those numbers were different enough that it was easy to differentiate between one and the other? It's not like you had to go through like explaining exactly. I mean, you just say 203, 103. You're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, 103, I get it.
And
that's the
BDP
Blu-ray.
for Blu-ray disc player, UDP for Ultra HD Blu-ray disc player.
They changed two things in there so that it made sense. Did you see that? It's amazing. It's almost like someone sat down in a room and said, let's not confuse our customers. Yeah, just to keep things real. All right. Anyways, before we go on real quick, I did get the elevation speakers from SVS.
Ooh, nice. Yep.
They are in a box in the other room. I did not set them up this weekend because I have children. Mm-hmm. And also my wife has decreed that this house is a filthy pigsty and we are going to fix it. So my garbage can, my dumpster out at the curb right now must weigh 300,000 pounds. It is, I think it's starting its own singularity. There's so much garbage in there. Like, I'm like, hey honey, you know this color printer that's been sitting on top of our desk for a million years doesn't work anymore? Do you think we should chuck that? She's like, yes. Let's throw that away. So there was crying. It wasn't just me crying. It was crying. The kids were like, oh, this is terrible. Why do I have to get rid of all these toys? You don't play with them. But I want it. Look at the layer of dust. You're not touching that thing. Give it to me. So yes, that's what I did. But I did also get an amp for it. The one from, which one did you tell me to get?
Probably Parts Express, the Dayton.
Parts Express.
AVA
yeah, the
100.
Dayton one. That's in the box as well.
Cool.
Got that. So that's it's what, $60 or something like that. It's pretty cheap.
Well, it's close to 100. It's like $98 or something like that.
Whatever. It's cheap. Anyways, and that's what I'll be using to power those things. So there'll be height speakers up front once I get them set up. That is my plan.
Cool.
I plan on doing that soon. And by soon, I mean soon. Hopefully before Christmas, but I got no promises.
Yes.
One last comment. Jeff here wanted to let us know that he sold his Denon X4000, AVR X4000, and he was sorry to see it go, but he replaced it with the Denon AVR X4300H. He's now running a 7.2.4 setup, and he's played the DTSX soundtrack on the recent Jason Bourne Blu-ray film, and he said it's awesome. So that's the newer one that has, what's his name back in it, right?
Matt Damon's back.
Okay, not the one that they ran out of money and just stopped.
Yeah,
the movie
not
at
Hawkeye.
The end. I liked that movie until it stopped. I went, what? That's the end? There's no denouement? None of that? It's just, that's it. All right, whatever.
Well, congrats, Jeff. I'm glad you're happy with your new receiver.
That's good. New for this week, Ted. First, he wonders, what are our top 5 movies of 2016 in terms of sound and picture, and top 5 2016 all around? I hope you heard the part at the beginning of this podcast, Dad, where I told you I got no time to watch stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's important. That's important.
My picks are super boring.
I know. They are. Especially since one of them is like a hot trash movie that I watched the other night, and it was hot trash. But go on.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just rattle them off. Captain America Civil War.
I love movie. That movie.
Star Wars The Force Awakens, the Blu-ray release of that. Really good looking. Sounds great. The Jungle Book. I was pleasantly surprised by that one. That one's like probably the one pick I can be like, hey, you might not have totally expected that. X-Men Apocalypse looks good. Sounds good. I enjoyed it. I know everybody else hated it. I know that's the one you're going to say is trash, but I enjoyed that.
Oh.
And Zootopia, because, hey, it's Disney, so.
I know. I mean, I read that, although the Chris Claremont stuff from back in the day, all the Dark Phoenix stuff, and I'm watching this thing going, I know what's going on, and I'm fairly certain that if anybody else was in my family was in this room with me, they'd be like, what is happening? I'm like, and oh jeez, the bad guy was
Apocalypse
so boring.
Just wants to give makeovers, okay? Just let the guy give makeovers. That's what he wants to do.
Least intimidating villain I've ever seen. I'm like, I mean, he's like emo Apocalypse. Like, you look at Apocalypse, and this guy is like, oh well, I want to be God. I'm like, really? Because you're supposed to have like all the powers of all these other different guys, and so far all you do is melt people in the walls. That's exciting. And you're telling me all this time he lived for millennia, right? All this time, and healing factor was the thing he was missing? Come on. All right, Captain America Civil War is probably the only one that I got from this year that's actually from this year on my list. Oh, I've got Force Awakens as well. I do like that one as well. That movie I liked. I'm not going to tell everybody it's a fantastic movie, it's the best one in the series or anything like that, or even rank it.
No, it was
I
good.
liked it. It was fine. It was a very good redo of the original Star Wars, and I'm excited to see that
it was a reset to say these aren't the prequels. We're getting back to basics. We're going back to Star Wars.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, there you go. Palate cleansed. Now let's move on.
That's right. We can wash all that other stuff away. Now I'm going to put movies on here that I like. Or shows too, because I watch Netflix all the time. Jungle Book, I wouldn't have thought of it, but I borrowed my parents got Jungle Book on Blu-ray, and that's actually my brother. But I watched it, and it was great.
Yeah.
My kids liked it. I liked it. That was really good. I was pleasantly surprised at how non-sucky that was.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be terrible, but it was very good. I have started Zootopia, but I have not finished it, and it's on Netflix. So. Okay, so Deadpool is just a movie that I watch over and over again. So, and that's just my sense of humor. If you don't like it, that's fine. But it's got some decent bass in there. Nothing that really writes home about. But it's just a good all-around movie. Jessica Jones on Netflix. If you have not seen that, I mean, the visuals are pretty good. And as far as streaming goes, it's probably one of my favorite shows. And again on Netflix, but you can get this on Blu-ray as well. Is Penny Dreadful. Which
sure.
I absolutely love. I have not watched the third season yet.
It's weird that I was going to say the reason I have so few movies is because I spend all my time watching TV shows. I have no time for movies because all I do is watch TV. But I didn't even. You were the one who had TV shows on me.
Hey, that's all I watch. I got no time for this. I really don't. And I mean, I've picked up a couple of movies from that I've liked.
Sure.
From Redbox, like what's the one with is it I Spy or Spy or something like that with what's her name?
Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah, I like that movie. I thought that was a cute movie. I don't think that but that's the sort of stuff I'll just pick something up and watch it and take it back, and I kind of forget about it. So, anyways, Ted hosted the movie night last week, and his new. First of all, let me go back. Ted. I mean, there's a lot of great movies that come out every year, but what it's going to come down to is you're going to find some movies that you like to use to show off.
Yeah.
But let me tell you about showing off your theater for other people. No one wants to watch what you want to watch. That's what it really comes down to. What you really need to do is have people bring over something that they want to watch, or decide in advance what you're going to watch. Like, hey, this new movie came out. How whatever. So what that it's the I can't even think of some sort of movie about people falling in love and getting cancer and dying. Whatever those are, terms of endearment, all that nonsense. Who cares that doesn't have great bass and it's not showing off your subwoofer? That's not what they're interested in anyways, and they're not going to be impressed by that. What they will be impressed with is the big screen and the overall surround sound experience. So let them pick. That's sort of that's my when people come over, I want them to have the final say as what we're going to watch. And if I don't want to watch it, well, I can leave. It's my theater. Ted hosted movie night last week with his new Power Sound Audio V15V subwoofer, and it awed everyone. However, it seems to him that the frequency response is much less even than it was with this 8-inch Def Tech. Probably due to the new sub-playing frequencies that Def Tech wasn't. Could be.
Yes.
I don't know. We should maybe ask Sherlock or something. Since he's not going to buy a second sub right now, how close can he get to dual sub evenness with room correction and or other DSP? Answer, not very. Okay?
Yeah.
Not very.
I mean,
That's what it comes down to.
You can even out one seat, but by doing so, you're going to make other seats in the room even more uneven than they were before.
Yeah. The idea here is that it's kind of weird, and I know you're not buying another sub right now, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I'm not on that, but it's like, hey, I have this. I'm not going to go back to cars again. I've got this serrated, this knife that what's the power electric knife,
sure.
but it cuts really. It doesn't cut very well. Now I'm not going to sharpen it. What else can I do to make it cut better? Like, Well, I mean, not anything really. I mean, you could try. You try pushing harder, I guess, or hooking it up to a generator that shoves extra power through it or something. But really, in the end, the only solution is to sharpen the knife. The only solution here to even out across multiple seats is multiple subwoofers. That is the solution. So anything other than that is going to be a half measure at best. In this case, not even really a half measure. So
yeah, I mean, I guess you could do like a multiple subwoofer crawl to see if you can find a spot in your room that is somewhat better for more than one seat. I mean, it's just a lot of trial and error.
So what you could do is you could put the sub in your main seat and then crawl around and rank all the locations that you find.
Right.
You're like, this is the best one for seat 1. So you put 1 1. This is the best one for seat 2, 1 2, or the second best one for seat 1, so 1 2. Third one for seat 1 1 3. And then you go around and do that for every seat, and then whichever one gets the highest overall ranking across all the seats is the one that you use. Might not be the best, it might be the worst for seat 1,
right?
Where you're going to sit, but overall it's kind of not as sucky for everybody else. And then then you can't. I mean, running the room correction program at that point, you're really going to make it worse again. You're going to you actually don't want to run it in the low frequencies if you can get away with it.
Well, I mean, if you're doing the multiple measurements, it's just going to
you have to measure at each seat.
You're going to go, well, it's different from seat to seat, so I'm not going to equalize it very much. That's sort of the end result. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's really nothing to do. Sorry. I don't like to say that, but it's true. Mark was just about to purchase an LG 70UH 6350. It's a TV, I guess. $1,200 rather than the Vizio E Series 70D3. When he heard that Rob say that he can't recommend the LG Super UHD TV. So, why? Is it because that the LG has an IPS panel? Is that why, Rob?
So this UH6350 is not part of the Super UHD lineup. And it is actually using a VA panel. It's not using an IPS panel. It's a panel that's manufactured by Sharp, because Sharp seems to be the only company in the world making 70-inch LCDs. I don't know why, but everyone who has it seems to be using a Sharp panel. So it's not a Super UHD, which means it doesn't have Dolby Vision. It doesn't hit 1,000 nits. And it's an 8-bit panel on top of all that. So it's compatible with an HDR10 signal, but it's not really showing it to its full extent. On top of all that, it is edge-lit. It has uneven backlighting. There's a lot of things that, like, honestly, if you're looking at an LG and it is not one of their OLEDs, I just can't really recommend LG's LCD TVs. They just fall down in picture quality. Nice feature sets, just not great picture quality. Now, he was asking about the Vizio E series in the 70-inch size because it's a similar price point. I think the list price is $1,300, but you can find them for $1,200. Well, the E series is 4K resolution, but it doesn't have HDR of any kind. So it's not really comparable because, at least the LG has HDR10 support. The E series from Vizio doesn't have either. So there's back and forth between the two. If I were forced to pick one of these, I'd probably still pick the E series, even though it doesn't have HDR, because at least it has an even backlight.
That, as we're going to find out later in this podcast, can be an extremely irritating thing when the backlight is not even.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that, like, not everybody's bothered by it, particularly if you only watch in a bright room. If you only watch in a bright room, it's less important. But if you ever watch at night where it's dim and you don't have a lot of ambient light around it, to me, an uneven backlight is like, it drives me nuts. I can't stand it. But that's not everybody. So there's a case to be made if you're like, you know what, I just want to get a 70-inch TV that is HDR10 compatible for the least amount of money possible. Well, the LG wins because it's got all those features. I just can't say I think it has really great picture quality. It's not like it's, if people from 25 years ago came to now and were like, what are you complaining about? Right?
I know.
But, I don't want people to...
With their 300-pound, 36-inch CRTs. Takes three people to get it up the stairs.
I come at it from the point of view, I would rather have somebody come back to me and say, you're nuts, I think this TV looks great, versus you told me that this was a good TV and I don't think it looks very good. I would rather have scenario one. So that's where I'm coming from.
I hope that helps. That pretty much answers both of his questions.
Well,
So,
not quite, because
well, is there another model that you would recommend?
yeah, I would recommend either sacrificing 5 inches in screen size and getting the 65-inch M series, because that's the
Right.
same price, or save up an extra, in this case, it's an extra $600, because you can get the
Yeesh.
70-inch M series for $1,800,
Yeah.
but that is a significant price jump, but it's a very significant jump in picture performance as well. Because the M series is pretty darn nice. It has both Dolby Vision and HDR10, 64 zones of local dimming. So it's a significant upgrade getting that M series. So to me, it's worth it.
I would probably dump the 5 inches, to be honest with you.
And
That's
sit a
probably
little
what I would do.
closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my honest answer.
Lean forward. Lean forward when you're watching TV. Mike has a 5.1.2 system in a 33-foot by 16-foot great room with a Denon AVRX 2200. He uses dynamic EQ but not dynamic volume. Good. He sits 13.5 feet from a 120-inch projection screen. That's bolded. I don't know why it's bolded. Anyways, hearing us discuss a subwoofer crawl, he considered doing it, but to better optimize a single subwoofer placement. Then the idea of using a sub near field came up. Since his room is huge and open, and he mostly watches movies at night when his family's asleep with the volume around negative 30 dB, would moving the sub close to his couch, maybe even right behind it, improve his low volume listening experience? I don't honestly think so. And if you're going for the rumble, I think that, and I hate saying this because the AC kicked on. Thank God. I hate saying this because it's something that I don't like. But in your case, if you're going for a movie listening experience, but you cannot get the bass that you need, a bass shaker might be the right solution for you. You can put it closer to your couch. It may increase how things sound to you, but it's not going to be that movie experience. And putting a bass shaker on your couch may help give you that experience that you are looking for.
Yeah, to me, it's a bit of a yes and no, because it improves it in some ways, right? You get that first initial kick. It sounds a little bit better, or you feel it a little bit more, and sometimes that's all people are looking for. But it doesn't quite blend in a way that sounds completely natural or completely the way it would be ideally if you were pressurizing the entire room.
Right.
So it's like it's a little bit of give and take. I mean, honestly, if you're able to just experiment and try it, you might find that a near field placement, you might go, you know what, this is all I was after. I get a little bit more kick. I enjoy it a little bit more. No, it doesn't sound completely natural, but this is an improvement on what I had, so I'm happy. That might be you. On the other hand, you might go, this still isn't getting me all the way to where I want to be. So, yeah, it's maybe if you're able to experiment, I certainly don't think it's something to avoid giving a try. It might be just enough.
It might be. If you can try it, go ahead and try it. But I think that if you're going, nah, that's not really it, might be the bass shaker, might be the thing. You should definitely do the subwoofer crawl, though.
Oh, yes.
That should happen regardless of what happens next. Your first thing you should do is a subwoofer crawl. Figure out where's the best place for it. Stick it there. Live with it for a little while. Stick it behind your couch or next to your couch. Experiment with that. And then see. Because a subwoofer crawl will make a difference regardless. Later, he says, if you were to have a pair of subs, could you place one close to where the left surround is? And we're going to put some pictures up here if we haven't already. It is basically leaving it near field and place the other between the center and left main where a single sub is now. Let me look at this picture, because I do have the pictures.
In his email, he mentioned something about having them diagonally across, so I wonder if he actually meant closer to his surround right speaker, or if he meant between his center and front right speaker, because he mentioned diagonal placement. What was just said there would not be diagonal. That would both be on the left side wall, or close to the left side walls. But
what is in the back of this room? Is it as kitchen? What is that back there? Because it's on the wall to an office.
Like a wet bar? I think that's a wet bar.
You see, if I were you, I'd put one next to the wet bar and one like
under the center channel,
if you could, more or less under the center channel.
I was even thinking maybe one sort of under the surround left speaker, one under the surround right speaker.
That would work as well. That's right. The surround left speaker, surround right speaker would be fine.
And I want to assuage his fears and anyone else's fears, having two subwoofers both behind your seat magically does not sound like the bass is coming from behind your seat. I know it's completely counterintuitive. I think in his head he's thinking, oh, I got to have one sub at least in front of me somewhere. But you don't have to. Having both of the subs behind the seat, one right under your surround left, one right under your surround right, would totally work. So
yeah, it doesn't. The bass doesn't care. The bass doesn't care. It's just filling up the space.
And you do not hear a single cycle. Yeah. It takes multiple cycles of that sound, which means it's bounced all around your room before it finally registers in your brain. All right.
Got a weird email. Okay, all right. So if you were thinking of getting an SV, he was thinking, I'm sorry, or is thinking of getting an SVS PB1000. If near field is a decent idea, is that a good sub to get? He's accepted that he won't ever fully pressurize his space. He just wants the best experience he can get without shaking the house or waking anybody up. Well, any sub cannot shake the house. You just turn it down, right? But don't you kind of want to have the experience where you have the option of turning it up at some point? You know.
But that's more money for something he might legitimately never use.
If that's the case, I mean, I really think that. I mean, I don't know.
I would love to suggest at least 2000s in this room. I would love.
I would actually suggest that you build yourself. Does he already have one of these things? No,
he has
doesn't.
one sub. I don't know what sub he has.
He doesn't say what he has. You do not realize how big the BP1000 is. I will tell you that. If you do not have one, you do not realize how big it is. It may be worth the extra cost, and at some point in the future, worth the performance to have the 2000, the sealed 2000, the SB 2000. Oh. Now, that's not going to give you a ton more performance than the PB would give you. But what it will do is give you lower extension and a beefier amp and a beefier driver.
And a smaller size.
And a much smaller size.
Or
Significantly
there's the cylinders. There's the PC 2000 cylinders.
If you can get the PC, if you can wrangle those cylinders, then you might even be, you're not going to pressurize the space, but you're going to have the option of getting awfully close. You know?
The other thing is, again, very counterintuitive, but when you set up two subwoofers nicely so that the sound is more even and uniform across your seats, very often you find that you don't have to play it as loud, or there's just not the big boomy peak because you've evened things out. And very
think of it
often,
this way. Yeah. Think of it this way: when you've got uneven bass, right, and there is the very non-zero chance that you're going to be sitting in a space where the frequencies that you're most sensitive to are going to be in a valley, basically, in the response. That means they're canceling out where they hit you. So your room correction program, or maybe you just turn it up because of your ears, are going to adjust that so that you hear it better. But that means that in the other frequencies that have peaks in them, maybe the subsonic frequencies that you can't actually hear, that are the ones that are doing most of the shaking in the house, those are being boosted and multiplied multiple times.
Yeah.
So that when it's actually shaking the house a lot more, and you're listening to it at a level that seems reasonable to you. When you even out that bass across all of that, then you're actually, for a lot of these parts that are peaked, the parts that have additive qualities of the bass bouncing around the room, those things are evened out, and you're not feeling the need to turn it up as loud, and it's having less residual energy in the room that's going for the shaking of the house. Plus, you put these things on the SVS little sound path isolators or one of the grandma pads or whatever, and you decouple it from the floor, and bada bing, bada boom, you're not shaking nearly as much as you thought you were. This room is not 30 feet. The door to this is not 30 feet. Maybe it's 30 feet to my wife's. I really don't know how far 30 feet is. We'll say it's less than 30 feet to the bedroom, my bedroom, through an empty hallway. I mean, it's not a hallway. It actually goes into the kitchen and everything. It's like our great room, right? She never wakes up. She has never woken up. I can't remember since we moved into this house her ever waking up because it was loud. Now, she has in the past when it was an actual hallway and I had bad bass in one subwoofer and I had it up loud, and it would bounce around down the hallway and shake the whole house, and I had it on spikes. I mean, coupled directly to the floor. That woke her up. This has never. She has come in and told me, "Are you coming to bed?" Which is code for I can't sleep and I want you to help me. So there we go. That being said, he's probably still not going to do any of this stuff that we're talking about. So,
No, but
can you get a
two subs are
PB1000?
gonna, two subs are going to help you out. I wouldn't say a pair of PB1000s is the end of the world. It's not what I would pick for this room. I would point you to.
Oh God,
I would point you to a pair of PC 2000 cylinders if you can do that. Because price-wise, performance-wise, I think that's a nice middle ground for you. But if you got a pair of PB1000s, at least you can't break them. At least you can't destroy them just by playing them too loud. So they're not a terrible choice.
Your room will try to break them, but you can't. So yes, I agree. Troy says after running multi-Q, Odyssey multi-Q on his slimline Marantz, his subwoofer still sounds boomy at some frequencies. It seems to him that the receiver doesn't EQ as much in the lower frequencies and LFE as in the other channels. Why doesn't Odyssey or the receiver itself have more EQ options at 200 hertz and below? Just another strategy to sell higher end models. This is just multi-Q, right? XT
this is
or
just multi-Q. It's not XT. It's not XT32.
It doesn't. When you say that it doesn't EQ much, it doesn't EQ any.
Oh, it does. Multi-Q EQ some. It's 2 EQ that doesn't do any.
In the LFE, I didn't think it did any in the LFE.
Yep. No, multi-Q does. Multi-Q was the original version of Odyssey, and it does, but it doesn't have a ton of filter bands. So XT was a big upgrade.
Now, what this is, and if you talk to the Odyssey people, there's two things that are going here. First of all, this is an earlier version of Odyssey where you've just got to expect. It's like you can't get mad at a Model T Ford not having cruise control. They were still working on these things as they go across time. That's part of it. Also, processing power is a huge issue here, and that's what it really comes down to. Receivers have to have the right amount of processing power in order to do all these different bands of filtering in real time, all the different fur filters and corrections that they're going to do. In order to do that, they have to have a certain amount of processing power, which means that, yes, the higher end receivers tend to have more processing power because they cost more and you can put more technology in them. That's why they ended up with Odyssey 2 EQ, because Onkyo, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know this is true, but as far as I'm concerned, Onkyo said, we are going to give you this much processing. How much EQ can we give us? And they said basically none. Here you go.
To be fair, there were some Denon models that had 2 EQ at one point as well.
Yeah, so. Very, 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 very early ones. Yeah. And very, very basic ones too.
Yeah, the lowest priced ones. But to get back to Troy, I want to warn him away from the idea that just spending more money on a higher end receiver, or even adding something like a mini DSP or even an outboard Dirac box or whatever, would fix his issue, because it very well might not. There might not be enough processing power and filters and EQ in the world to fix his problem, because boomy bass is caused by your room, where you're sitting in the room, and where the subwoofer is positioned in the room. And you can sometimes help that with EQ, but sometimes if you're sitting in a cube in the middle of a cube and then have a subwoofer placed in the corner, there's no amount of EQ in the world that's going to fix that for you. So I don't want him attributing everything here and saying, I paid a good amount of money for this slimline receiver and it didn't fix my problems. It's like, well, maybe any amount of EQ wouldn't fix your problem.
Yeah, that's a really important point here.
Yeah,
bad subwoofer placement. You cannot EQ it to good subwoofer replacement. That's just not the way this works. You take a great sub, you put it in a bad room in the wrong location, and it's going to sound bad. We had this problem. This was maybe a year ago. Somebody bought Rob's speakers and didn't like them, and then they described to us how they had them set up. We're like, dude, are you serious? Yeah, of course you don't like them. That you're in a highly reflective room and you're sitting like this, and there's this, blah, blah, blah. That happens. The speakers cannot, the speaker or the subwoofer or the receiver or whatever, it is not a panacea. You don't go out there and buy a piece of equipment and say, boom, that's it.
But to be fair to Troy, if you're just going by the marketing, that's what it sounds like. They're like, absolutely. Hey, we've got room correction. We will, no matter your room, we will fix the sound, right? That's basically what the marketing says. So he's right there. It didn't do what it, said on the box.
A lot of times, though, what they're really saying is that they're saying, we will make it better.
But I mean, you got to admit, when you read that stuff at first blush, it sounds like they're promising magic.
Yeah, it does. Right? Yeah, I'll agree with that.
So honestly, Troy, you're another candidate for doing a subwoofer crawl, because it sounds like he only has one subwoofer. Mm-hmm. It sounds like he really only has the one seat that he cares about.
Yeah.
So you are absolutely, because what you want to do, I always say any of these room correction programs, whether it's Odyssey or YPower, Dirac, or any of them, Trinov, whatever, they are the cherry on top. They're the last piece of the puzzle to get you that, last 10%. You want to have everything in your room, in your speaker placement, in your seating placement, in your acoustic panels that you have on your walls, your bass traps in your cars. You want all of that set up as well as possible so that when the EQ finally comes along and goes, I don't have to do much, but the tiny little bit that's left, I can fix that for you. You don't want EQ being like, this is going to fix my biggest problems, because it isn't. It's not capable of doing that.
Right.
So yeah, your number one thing to do here, Troy, is a subwoofer crawl for sure, because if you can fix some of the biggest problems, then even regular multi-EQ can help you with some of the smaller stuff that just needs more fine-tuning as opposed to big fixes.
Well, it looks like my video recording stopped.
All right.
so
Well,
you know.
Tom's going to be a logo again.
Well, the first
We're
half
used to
hour.
it.
That's all right at this point. We will fix it for next time. I'm just going
Yes.
to delete this. I'm not even going to worry about it. Just out of that.
Logo Tom.
Logo Tom is back. That's good. That means I can. You won't have to see me
One of these days, I'm just
sweating
gonna-
in here.
I'm just going to leave my green screen. I'm not even going to put the logo there. I'm just going to be like, green screen.
Green
That's
top.
what it is.
That's what I am. All right, you can put whatever you want up there. Infinite Gary. Infinite Gary asks, will we consider the JVC RS600 projectors, which is the same as the DLA X950R, to be a significant upgrade over his Runco Q750D? Any projectors around that 10,000 price point that would be worth considering? I'm sorry, QuickTime is mad at me now for stopping. So go ahead. Answer his question.
Just to mention for folks who aren't familiar with the Runco, that is a 1080p projector that uses LEDs as the light source DLP panel. So it's a single DLP chip with an LED light source 1080p. So I would consider the JVC X950, or in the Pro version, it's the RS600. I would consider that an upgrade for several reasons. One, it's compatible with 4K. It's still using a 1080p chip, or 3 1080p chips, but it's wobbling them, so it's Wobble K. But it's compatible with 4K. Gary's Runco is not. It is compatible with HDR10. Gary's Runco is not. It has a DCI color filter if you want to go out to the P3 color space. The Runco can expand beyond 709, but it doesn't actually hit DCI P3. So yeah, in several ways, it's also brighter and has better black levels. So
There you go.
In almost every way, I would consider it an upgrade. Now, other projectors that cost around $10,000 with similar capabilities would be Epson's LS10500. That uses lasers as the light source.
Lasers.
In every other way, it's very similar to that JVC RS600 or X950. It's very similar. Again, it's 1080p panels that are wobbled to do Wobble K, HDR10 compatible, DCI color filter, but laser light engine. And it actually is less expensive, the LS10500. It's not as bright, but the light source lasts like 30,000 hours,
Nice.
whereas the lamp in the JVC lasts like 5,000. So there's trade-offs there. Then Sony does have their VW365. This would be the first projector at the $10,000 price point that has a genuine 4K resolution. And when they say 4K resolution, it really is 4K. It's 4096 by 2160, not the Ultra HD resolution of 3840 by 2196. So it's genuine 4K resolution, back to a lamp as the light source. It's technically compatible with HDR10. They actually added that via firmware, but it's not really a super bright projector. So unless you have a small screen size, which actually Gary's screen size is not gigantic. He's got a 92-inch, 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio, but still a 92-inch diagonal screen. So even that VW365 can probably light that up with HDR. So there's yours. I know which one. I'd go for lasers. That's what I would go for.
Second, he asks, with ideal room conditions and placement, and both speakers being well designed, are there any inherent advantages of either a ported or sealed center speaker? Inherently, ported speakers have more bass, technically speaking. They don't have to. I mean, depending. I mean, if you have the same box size, the same driver size, all that stuff, the ported one should have more bass. That being said, my answer to this question is no. There's no inherent advantage at all.
No, I wouldn't say there's an inherent advantage on the bottom end of the speaker unless they have done some weird filtering on the bottom end. But inherently, a sealed speaker will roll off at a rate of 12 decibels per octave. So it'll hit where the driver is its most, able to play the bass most efficiently, and then start to get quieter below that point at a rate of 12 decibels per octave. Whereas the ported speaker, that port is resonating at its tuning frequency, and then below that frequency, it rolls off at 24 decibels per octave. So that is an inherent difference in how they roll off below their tuning. But other than that, there's nothing inherently better about ported or sealed. It comes down to the speaker designer again.
You're looking for us to say something about how ports are flabbier and sealed ones are quicker. It's just not the case. It just isn't the case. I mean, that is a sort of old wives' tale of the audio world. You know, people look at it and say, "Oh, the air's going in and out, therefore it makes sense that it takes it longer to slow down, whereas the internal pressure of a sealed box brings it back to center a lot faster, that therefore it's a quicker speaker." It's just not the case. It's just
no, like it's just over on Ascend Acoustics, Dave AVRant explained it really well. Because people were asking, they're like, how come the new Sierra Lunas that he's bringing out, why are they ported? They're this tiny little speaker, and it's meant to go on wall. And some people were like, why isn't this a sealed speaker? He's like, well, I had a design goal where I wanted it to play down to a certain frequency, and the only way I could get there while keeping the same box size and keeping the same drivers was to make it a ported design. It's the only way I could get there. And then on the other hand, he has those HTM 200s in the SE series. They're a small box that can be mounted on a wall, but they're sealed. And people are like, why is this a sealed design? All the other SE speakers are ported. Why is this a sealed design? He's like, well, because I wanted to hit a certain bass frequency, and I had this box size, and I had these drivers, and this was the way to get there. So right. That's really what it's about. It's comes down to the design and what the design goal happens to be. And a port or a sealed design is a tool. It's one more tool in your tool chest, and you use it as needed.
That's right. Jack is under the impression that we think Paradigm speakers have a characteristic sound and that some people would like them the least when compared to other speakers. Can we describe the sound of Paradigm speakers compared to other speakers? Paradigm speakers have what I would call a classic Canadian sound, if that's fair to say. I think it is. There is the NRC lab in Canada, which is you'll hear brought up over and over again. This is basically as a government, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong since you're the Canadian, government-run laboratory where anybody can, I guess, rent time or get time in there to test their speaker designs. It's have anechoic chambers and all this other stuff, which is great because they have this access to this great facility that many manufacturers would not be able to get otherwise. And what ends up happening, not always, but many speaker manufacturers are looking for a very even, flat frequency response. And many speaker designers, aren't, but some are, but don't have the facilities of the NRC. So there are a number of different speaker designers that have used the NRC in the past, and Paradigm is one of them. Axiom used to use it before they made so much money they built their own anechoic chamber, though I think they still use it. I don't really know for sure. That they end up having a sound that is quite similar in that it has a very flat response across the entire frequency, tends to be extended pretty high on the high end, and a lot of times when I hear somebody say they want to listen to Paradigms, and then they list the other ones, I a lot of times will think that they will like the Paradigms the least, and that's usually based on what they've owned in the past. So in the past, if they have had something that isn't that characteristic sound, like let's say that they're I don't know, Polk Audio, just off the cuff there. Polk Audio has a sound. It is not a flat frequency response sound. It is a Polk sound. It's a little bass heavy most of the time, and there's other things that go on there. When you go from that to something that was tested in the NRC lab, and just because they go to the lab doesn't mean they're all going to sound the same, but has that characteristic sound that I attribute to manufacturers like Paradigm. I go, you're not going to like it as much at first blush. You're just not, and it's because it is not as different as they would like it to be.
I mean, objectively, it's really quite accurate.
Exactly. And there's nothing, and that's what we're going for. I like it. I like it just fine. I think Paradigms, in my experience, have been a little bit on the bright side, and that's one thing I don't like about that sound. The same thing sort of happens to Axiom speakers as well. They're a little bit, to my ear, they're a little bit bright.
Yeah, PSB is another example.
Yes,
Again,
that's the other
another
one.
Canadian
Couldn't
speaker
remember
company.
the name. I always want to say Monitor Audio, but I know they're not. They're not Canadian.
The original version of Energy,
Yes.
before they were bought up by Klipsch, which was then bought up by another company. But the original version of Energy was another one. Yeah. So it's funny because I mean I don't recall myself saying characteristic, because to me my image of the Canadian sound of that NRC rated sound, and actually that goes back to research done by Floyd Toole, so
Yes.
JBL and Revel tend to have quite a similar sound characteristic as well, which if you want to call it a characteristic, it's pretty objectively flat and accurate. Also, wide even dispersion is another thing that they tend
Yes.
to go for. So they don't go for a narrow dispersion or a controlled directivity where it's like more narrow vertically than it is horizontal. It's like, no, they want pretty wide polar, even polar response no matter which way you measure this thing. One of the advantages of measuring in an anechoic chamber is they can put the microphone anywhere around the speaker and take a measurement, and they do their spinorama measurement where they take like 70 measurements from all different angles around the speaker, and they're looking for a generally even wide dispersion with very flat frequency response.
But when you take a speaker like that and you put it up against a speaker that has a slightly enhanced, if not very enhanced, bass response, or a much more like a Klipsch speaker that has a very characteristically dynamic high end, these speakers end up sounding a bit ho hum because they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything dramatic. And,
Right.
and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. But when you say you're coming from Klipsch and you want to listen to Paradigm speakers, I go, you're not going to like them.
See, I think it's very good to get used to that sound.
Yes.
Because then you will be able to listen to other speakers and go, oh, they're clearly emphasizing or de-emphasizing some part of the frequency spectrum, which, like we always say, if you like it, that's fine. But
Yes.
it's good to start with a reference point of accurate, even neutral. Paradigm will deliver that quite nicely. So, yeah, that's why I say, to me, it's a bit odd to call it a characteristic sound because it's almost like the absence of a character.
Yeah.
That's their character.
But you can see what I'm saying here. It's like, you're going, you've got different cars at different, if you own a truck and you go test drive a Honda Accord, you're going to go, I don't know, man. If you own a little, Mazda Miata sports or something like that, little sports car, and then you go test that same Honda Accord, you're like, I don't know. Both these people are just coming from a background of something that is very specific for what it does, and they're coming to something that just kind of does everything pretty well. No, it's not the fastest car. No, it can't haul the most stuff. But it can do a lot of the stuff that you need a car to do, and it does it all really, really well. That's why am I always coming back to cars? I guess I think that's what people
You like it.
But that's what it comes down to. So when somebody comes to me and they're saying, "Oh, I've had these speakers and these speakers and these speakers. I want to listen to Paradigms." I'm like, I think that's great. You're probably not going to like them. That's only because it's going to take you a little while of listening to them so that you can listen to those and go back to your speakers and go, "Whoa. Why does this sound so different? This is the same content." And it takes a while for you to really kind of get to that idea of, wait a second here. These sound bloated on the bottom end. And while that sounds really good with this and this, I've noticed that it doesn't sound very good with these other things. And that's always sort of bothered me, but I never really knew it bothered me until I heard these other speakers.
You notice how many speakers are rolled off in the highs or have really directional sound in the highs, which is, also a common thing. So
Yeah. All right. David, I hope that helped. Or Jack, I'm sorry. No, David. Wait, Jack. Whatever. Jack! Sorry, I'm having a bad day. I scrolled too quickly and I lost my place. David, David wants to clarify that he always intended. We have to call that other guy David Jack now. Sorry.
There's too many nicknames for me to remember.
You don't have to remember them. Just want you to write them down. Whatever. Remind us if we give you a nickname, you're going to have to remember it yourself. We can't be responsible for this nonsense. David wants to clarify that he always intended to have a screen on the wall with this is the guy with the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is a guy, if you remember for last week, whose screen was almost floor to ceiling, and he had his frame set up, and the center channel is kind of like about a third of the way into the screen from the bottom, almost halfway there. Anyways, okay. So we'll throw some pictures up here in a second here. Anyways. David wants to clarify that he always intended to have his screen on the wall with the fuse box and the small window to sit 14 feet away from that wall. He had initially thought of making a baffle wall, but with this non-acoustically transparent screen covered the entire wall, he doesn't think there'd be much point to that now. You can always get a different screen. He'd still like to make use of his 135-inch screens somehow, and he'd like to put up the top edge of the frame right against the ceiling so he can still have about 10 inches below the screen where his center speaker could go. He tried putting his BenQ HT2050 projector on a coffee table 13 feet from the front wall and found out by tilting the projector he can get the image to fill the screen frame. Since that worked out, he tried simply holding the projector upside down above his head close to the ceiling. He's able to get the top of the image even with the top of the wall, and since there's a light fixture on the ceiling, he was even able to have the projector about 15 inches below the ceiling while still having the top of the projected image hit the top of the wall. So he's confused. We said that he need a flush ceiling mount, in that we said that there would be no way to avoid having the top edge of the image be several inches lower than the ceiling. Since angling tilting the projector works, why does the projector need to be above the top edge of the screen? There's a thing called keystoning, my friend. And what this is think of it this way. When you angle your projector, okay, say you're angling it up, the bottom of the screen, right, is going to be narrower than the top of the screen because it's shooting at an angle instead of directly straight forward. So when that happens, there's only there's two solutions. One is overshoot on the top and just live with the fact that you've got stuff cut off and everybody's a little bit weirdly stretched out at the top of the thing. Or you use keystone correction in your projector, which basically allows you to straighten those lines again using a digital processing thing, basically.
Yeah, it's a form of scaling, really.
Which is fine, except that you're now taking an image that was 1080p when it came out of your Blu-ray, went to your projector 1080p, was coming out of your projector 1080p, and now you're trying to scale it with your projector. Inherently, this is going to add at least the very least the possibility, if not the actuality, of some sort of visual artifacts.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. He sent an image where he's showing, this projected image completely filling the frame. I'm not exactly sure the scenario whether he had the projector down low or up high, but you can actually see in the image where up at the top of the frame,
it's wider.
Well, actually, in this case, it's the bottom that's wider, so it's keystoned downward. So this would be with the projector having tilted down, because here in the image the frame is sitting on the floor. So it looks as though he's tilted the projector down a little bit in this case, and you can see that at the top, the image is completely within the frame of the screen, but at the bottom, it's overshooting. There's some light spilling out at the bottom edge that you can see is going beyond the frame and hitting the wall. So that's that keystone effect. Now, I want to stress, because in this particular case, if he wants to put his frame right up against the ceiling, now the frame itself is about 3 inches thick, so the top of the screen itself is going to be 3 inches lower than the ceiling, in this case, just making up for the frame. Now, we recommended a projector ceiling mount that's only 2.5 inches tall, and then there's some height of the projector because we have to get down to the center of the lens, and then there's another 3.5 inches minimum where this particular projector, this BenQ HT2050 that he's using, has some lens offset. So all total, if the projector were ceiling mounted completely level, the top edge of the image would be about 8.5 inches below the ceiling. So realistically, what we're talking about is tilting it enough to raise the top edge of that image about 5.5 inches. That might not be the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like just leaving it alone. You'll get a little bit of keystoning, that's unavoidable, but it might be so slight an amount of keystoning that what is spilling out is still just hitting the black frame, and you really never see it. And you're not going to, like, your eye is not going to notice a very slight geometry distortion like that. So he's not wrong. Tilting the projector just a little bit is absolutely not the end of the world. If it makes it work, I would be fine. And even though it was an ultra low profile mount that we recommended, it still does have the ability to tilt as much as, I think it was 10 degrees because it's such a low mount. But you wouldn't need 10 degrees of tilt to get what he needs to do. So this actually could be a very realistic solution. You'd still want the projector mounted as close to the ceiling as possible. If you dropped it down 15 inches, you'd have to tilt it a lot to get the top of the image back up, only 3 inches down from the ceiling. So a drop here doesn't work. You're basically going to have to get rid of that light fixture. That's about the only. I mean, he said he's doing some electrical work anyway.
I got to get rid of my ceiling fan. The light fixture is too low on it. I took the glass off of it, and that helped. But I need to get rid of the entire light fixture so I can raise my screen as much as it needs to be raised.
But he's absolutely right that tilting it, just because if you're talking 5 inches, tilting it that much could absolutely work just fine.
So he says overall he's wondering how we figure out where the projector needs to be placed. Isn't the default just having the lens be even with the center of the screen? Your manual should have had, basically, if not, mine had a diagram on everything that tells you basically, there's different settings. You set it for, mounting on a tabletop, which means you're towards the bottom of the screen and it's going up. Mounting in the center, which is also an option, with some projectors, or mounting upside down. And which just basically is the same as mounting on the countertop, except you flip it over and some of them have the mounting on its flat, but having the screen image go lower.
Yeah, having it on a high shelf behind you or something. Say, there are several projectors where the default is the center of the lens would start out at the center of the screen. There's lots of Epsons that are like that.
Yeah.
You'll typically find that being the case on projectors that have lots of lens shift. They give you lots of range to adjust the lens, but it is not the case in this BenQ HT25. There is a diagram in the manual. It's very confusing. Because they give it in terms of percentages of screen height.
Right.
And it's like, what the heck does that mean? But they do show a diagram where they have the projector just basically on the floor, and then they show it firing straight forward so that it's making a 90-degree angle with the wall. And then they're showing that the bottom of the projected image will be a little bit above that. It'll be, so whatever the height of the image that you're projecting, so let's just say you're projecting an image that's 50 inches tall. It will be 5% of that image height above the straight ahead 90-degree angle. Or if you flip it upside down and mount it on the ceiling, it will be 5% of the height of the image lower than the straight ahead 90-degree angle. So that is described in the manual. And, it's confusing as heck if you're not super familiar with projectors. It's like, why isn't there some standard across the industry? Unfortunately, there just isn't.
There just isn't. This kind of answers your next question, which is if he upgrades his projector in the future, could he get one that doesn't need to be tilted? Perhaps even something that could be placed lower or an extended mount that would clear the light fixture. Seriously, dude, you're going through a lot of trouble to save this light fixture. I don't understand why we were so attached to it, but I mean, clearly this means something to you, so that's fine. But if you're going to upgrade your projector and everything, it's clearly the case that you can find stuff with tons of lens shift that would give you this.
Oh, yes.
All you have to do is look in the manual beforehand or do a little bit of research, and they'll tell you how you can place this thing and make sure that it fits within what you want.
Oh yeah, there are plenty of projectors where the lens of the projector could be within the boundaries of the screen.
Yes.
And still fill the whole screen. There's lots of the projectors can do that. Yours, the one you currently have, the BenQ HD 2050, cannot.
Ain't one of them. So there's your problem right there. On the audio side, he's ordered several 2 by 4 inch bats or feet.
Foot.
Yeah.
2 foot by 4 foot.
I'm getting tired. Bats of Voxel rock wool insulation. 11 yards of acoustically transparent fabric from Acoustimac. He's planning on making 8 absorption panels 4 inches thick. And since the ceiling is only 82 inches high, he was thinking they could be floor to ceiling. Do we like that plan? Do we think he'll need more panels? I don't know about the more panels. Let me look at this thing again.
panels don't need to go floor to ceiling.
They don't. I mean, it's not. I mean, they don't. They don't. But at the same time, it's not exactly like it's hurting anything to go floor to ceiling either.
No.
It's kind of necessarily. It's kind of a waste. I guess
You could potentially make more panel, like the 2 foot by 4 foot size. I'm like, there you go, just leave it.
Yeah, that's what most people do.
Yeah, if you were making it floor to ceiling, that's an uneven, because it's a 6 foot 10-inch ceiling, so that's an uneven. Like, you'd have to cut things strangely. I mean, I guess you could make 6 foot tall panels, but then that still isn't technically floor to ceiling. So I
think he's looking for like that column look. I think it would look nice.
Yeah.
In which case,
True.
there's nothing wrong with that. You still want to place them at the first reflection points if you can of the speakers, the main speakers, which are they even 4 inches off that side wall? It's awfully hard to see in the picture I'm looking at right now.
It's close.
It's awfully close on that right side. So you definitely want to put something right near that right front speaker for sure. And then the other ones, kind of do whatever, I guess. It's not really, I would put
how helpful.
I would, well, I mean, those are the most important ones. I don't know where he's going to put these things so that I would definitely put some behind the couches so that, whatever kind of wherever the speakers are firing.
That's his next question, because he had a plan in mind for what he was.
Oh, right. Wait a second. I didn't get it. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Where should he place the panels? He was thinking 2 on each side wall close to the front left right speakers, 2 on the back wall, and one on each side wall right beside his seats near his surround speakers. Anything we would add or change to that? Nope. I like it.
I mean, that would be fine. The only thing I might do is the ones that are going to be directly to the sides of your seat, if you want to put them on your ceiling instead. But that's, I don't know.
What about the corners? Why don't you build a corner trap while you're doing all this?
Yeah, you could. I mean, they're basically going to be in his front corners already anyway, just because of the way things are set up. But you could put them in the rear corners.
Yeah, there's that.
Because having them directly to the sides of your seat isn't going to do a ton.
No, it'll absorb
not much. That's
just some stuff bouncing around the room. But if you can have them in that right back corner back there, you can build yourself a floor to ceiling base trap right back there. The chunk traps. Google chunk traps.
Sure.
And those, basically you cut triangles and you just stack them floor to ceiling, and then you wrap some fabric over it, and that's a nice big base trap for you back there.
Yeah.
That's one thing I would recommend. But what you're saying is fine.
Yes.
Basically, if you hit the first reflection points, you put some behind your head if you can. Like in my room, I can't. But you put some behind your head, I'm happy. Yep. Everything else is just gravy. Let's see here. I have to scroll. Heath. This is an interesting question. Heath reached out to Gick for some advice while finalizing his room design. They made the following statement about dual subs in opposing corners. Here we go. This is from Gick. The diagonal sub setup I would not recommend. Either do both front or both rear, or one center front and one center rear, better according to the Harman research. Doing diagonals just excites a lot of additional problems, not to mention killing our ability to symmetrically treat the room for base. Left-right symmetry is critical, so we don't want to treat the other 2 diagonal corners. Both front and both rear is what you want to go for. This is for the subs, both front or both rear.
Yes, that was the response.
Heath knows placement. He knows about placement on opposing walls. We've talked about that a lot on this podcast. He says, if possible, this is the best placement, but is opposing corners really a worse option than both subs on a single wall? What should he tell Gick to get the best room treatment plan? You should not tell them. You should just order the stuff and not talk to them anymore, because whoever you talk to over there does not know what they're talking about.
Well, I mean, I understand how this arrived.
Well, the part of it is that they want you to put base traps in all 4 corners. Okay, so they do not want you to put subs there because they want you to put base traps in all 4 corners. Now, I have no idea why on God's green earth they would say to you that it is not a good idea that symmetrically placing base traps is more important than having subwoofers in the right places. But it doesn't make sense to me. Okay, let me just go ahead and assuage your fears here. You can use corner placements, and you can put base traps in the other 2 corners, and that was exactly what I would do. That is what Rob would do. That's the way America did it, and it's worked out so far, good so far. So, that's it. So, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, that's ridiculous. That's old school stuff, and it doesn't really work. Yes, center placement or opposing placements on walls that aren't in corners are fine as well, but corners work just fine.
Yeah, so just to remind folks, Heath is the fellow who had that basement set up where he had that water system, the water softener, and
I'm going to have to look at this.
Yeah, the water softener and the whatever that other thing was, water thing, but he's going to be putting a false wall there and then building around that. You remember, Heath.
Yes.
Yeah, just as a reminder. But I know where Gick is coming from in this, because if you go back to that Harman research, if you go by the math, by the prediction that was made, it was predicted that 2 subwoofers in diagonally opposite corners would not produce as uniform and even bass as what actually ended up happening when they did real world measurements. When they physically set up subwoofers in a real room and measured it, it turned out better. And the explanation, this is oversimplifying it, but the basic explanation is, well, when they modeled the room, it was a perfect room. It's a perfect rectangle with perfectly flat walls, with perfectly reflective walls. And when you build a real room, it's not a perfect rectangle. The walls aren't perfectly flat and they aren't perfectly reflective. And there was basically enough variables in the real room, once you actually construct it, that you got higher modal density than what the math predicted. That the room is uneven enough when you construct it that it didn't work out exactly in line with the math. Now, to be completely clear, the math predicted that having one at the center of the front wall and the center of the back wall, or the center of the 2 side walls, would be better. And when they measured it, it was better.
Yeah.
So we're all in agreement there, and that's fine. Heath already knows that. But the diagonally opposite corner placement works better in real life than it does according to the math. So I believe that Gick is basically going by the math. And again, if you go by the math and you have 2 subs up at the front of the room and you treat the heck out of the room, you can sort of brute force your way into making that work. And since Gick is a company that sells bass traps and acoustic treatments, they're like, hey, we can solve this problem. We can solve the problem with 2 subs at the front of your room.
I think you're giving them too much credit, dude.
It takes a lot. Well, but I'm just sort of explaining where they're coming from. But here's what I would tell Heath. I would go back to Gick and I would say, you know what? I've decided to get 4 subwoofers and put 1 in each corner. Now model my room for me. Then in real life, just do 2 diagonally opposite corner subs, because it'll work out just fine.
Yeah. I wouldn't do any of that, to be honest with you. I wouldn't do any of that. First of all, I don't agree with Rob. I don't think that they are. I don't think that they are making a mistake because they're going by the math and whatever. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think this is just somebody who doesn't. I mean, I don't think that you're talking to Glenn. Was he talking to Glenn? He wasn't talking to Glenn, was he? Might be,
because Glenn does a lot of that stuff himself. So
if that's the case, if it is Glenn that you're talking to, then it could well be. But he should. I read that and guess what? I skimmed it because I'm not. That thing is forever long. But if you go to the end and you just read the summary and stuff, it's what it's going to say. It said just what Rob said, which was we predicted that the math predicted, the models predicted that the center, midpoints of walls, opposing walls was the best. It was. The model predicted that opposing corners would be bad, but it wasn't.
Well, not bad, but just not as good as it actually turned out to be.
Exactly. That's what it predicts. It says it right there in the article. So it could very well. I don't know why he's saying that, other than, and I don't believe that Gick is this way, other than to try to sell you more traps, which honestly, I've never had an experience with them that makes me think that that's what they would do. I think that the person that you were talking to was not Glenn, I hope, and that they were just misinformed. So I would say, listen, I am going to put, you do what Rob said, but I would still get the corner traps, that you're planning on getting. We'll
just tell them you're going to have, subwoofers that aren't that large and that you can still treat the corner, just maybe not the bottom 1.5 feet of it or something like that.
Whatever. Yeah, it's a very silly thing to say. This thing right here is all very silly, and that is a better according to the Harman research that the center front and right. But I have no idea why they immediately went off there.
Well, the other thing was in the Harman research, 2 subs at the front or 2 subs at the back was never the best choice ever. Not in the Harman research. So
not in the predictions.
That is weird. That I can't explain.
Yeah, and that's why I think that this is just misinformation from somebody who's got some of the story, but not all of it. And I think at this point they're just trying. This person, who I hope is not Glenn, is trying to sell you more traps. And while that's good for the company, it's not really good for the company for them to be spreading misinformation. Jonathan. Despite having 7-inch thick panels on his front and back walls, boy, this boy didn't play. Jonathan is still hearing a slap echo in his room. It's the higher frequencies that are a problem. He suspects his cathedral ceilings and non-symmetrical room are to blame. This is a media room, so he can do whatever he wants as far as the room treatments go, but he doesn't want to just experiment and do trial and error. He wants to know that whatever he does is going to work ahead of time. He can't really add any treatments to the side walls. One is a window and the other is a closet. Outside of hiring an acoustician to come in and measure and model his room, what can he do that will remove the ringing and echoes from his room? For sure, that's a hard question to answer if you're asking us for sure. You will need to take and build 7-inch panels all the way around your seat, top to bottom. You will not have any slap echoes.
Just make it a gobo.
Make that is just put all the way around. Think of it as a rock wool or insulation fort that you have built around your TV and your stuff. Now, he's got tons of room treatments here, and I think he's probably right. I think it's probably coming from the ceiling.
Oh, I am very certain it's coming from that ceiling.
I would consider, and this is going to be hard to do. There's two ways to do this. You could try to figure out where the first reflection point is going to be on that ceiling, where it's hitting first on that ceiling, and put some panels there. You could hang panels from the ceiling, to do it that way.
I would solve this the way you solve it in a commercial situation,
drop ceiling.
Drop ceiling would be one way, or those diffusers that would hang from the ceiling. Like, basically what you want to do is kind of create a flat ceiling.
Well, yeah.
So you can do that with drop ceiling tiles, or you can do it with you'll see it in a lot of office buildings. If you look up, there'll be those kind of like, it looks like a wood grid hanging down from the ceiling, which is a form of a diffuser. You can get diffusers like that. That would be the solve for this.
Yeah, but he has to make himself an entire ceiling of these things.
I know.
I mean, because if not, you have to figure out where the reflection point is. In which case, you could do either what you said or what I said. Either way works.
Either way, we're talking about putting stuff on your ceiling, dude.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. If it really is the ceiling, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to putting something on your ceiling or building a. Honestly, based on what he's going to ask us next, a drop ceiling is not out of the question.
I know.
So let me scroll over here. It is 150,000 degrees in this room, and I would like somebody to just throw some water on me right now. So while he likes the focal little bird speakers, he hasn't felt the surround back speaker positions have been all that impressive. He'd rather the extra two speakers be a little bit more obvious and noticeable. Welcome to my world, dude. I feel the same way. So based on comments we made last week, he thinks he'd rather use them as top middles. However, he has that uneven cathedral ceiling to deal with. He was thinking of extending a metal bar across his room from above the closet to some part of the sloped ceiling above the window. Does that seem like a good idea? And the other way to use the little bird speakers as top middles. What you're saying would work. And while you're putting this metal bar, put a bunch more until you make a grid pattern, and then put a drop ceiling in there. And then your slap echo issues are gone too.
Yeah, Tom's not wrong.
I'm telling you, man, this is the solution.
You are not wrong. Also, if you wanted to, you could throw a bunch of insulation above that drop ceiling and have yourself one heck of a bass trap.
I know, man.
You asked us what is something we can tell you that we know will work.
This will work.
We know that will work.
That will work.
That is a renovation. That is a thing to do.
You just put a drop ceiling in there, and these drop ceilings, they kind of hang from screw thingies or whatever, and they have a little thing, and they're easily removable. And they're not permanent, right? You put it up as high as you want to put it, as high as you can, right?
Yeah, you can still have some slope,
Yeah.
for a little portion on the sides, but then you have a flat drop
And
ceiling.
then you have a couple
above
of tiles that have like speaker grill or whatever in them. You put your little speaker aiming down from there, right? And then everything else, drop ceiling to ceiling, full of insulation.
That's not quite necessary, but insulation above the drop ceiling would be great.
Yeah.
That would be a great thing, and not super expensive.
That will work. This is not a solution he's going to like. Now, there's a very real chance that we're going to hear about this in about 25 minutes, about how he thinks this is a terrible idea. I can hear him right now.
It's a legitimate answer.
Hey, didn't say you were going to like it. You ask us a question, we give you the answer. John on Facebook. John asks us what power strips we use and what do we recommend buying. Do they filter out noise, and what are the price ranges? Okay, if I'm buying a power surge protector or whatever for devices in my house, I just kind of buy whatever. I can't be bothered to value shop or any of that stuff. Whatever, it's got some sort of like Trip Light or whatever, it's got some sort of warranty on it. UL certified. UL certified is what I'm looking for. As long as it's got that, I'm good. Okay. In my home theater, there's only one name. I mean, I do have a Panamax in here, but that was because it was a review unit and they never asked for it back. The only ones I really trust, the only ones I've ever purchased myself, are APC. And they have a huge range of different products based on what you need. So you get everything from battery backups to certain little power strips, and everything in between. So it's basically based on what you want. Now, the ones that I have in here are the H15. I also bought myself an H10, which... basically just a slightly smaller unit, slightly fewer features, and it's now living at my parents' house because I don't need it in here anymore. But the 15 is in here, and it tells me right now that my voltage is up a little bit. I'm at 124, 123, 124. Sometimes it'll dip down to 119, 118, and it keeps that voltage steady to all of my products up here. If we're getting really weird spikes and stuff like that, it'll click in and out, and the clicking is telling me that it is stopping excess voltage from happening. It'll also boost the voltage if it gets too low. You can plug in your cable into that and Ethernet and all that stuff to make sure that any surge will go through it as well. You will get some cable signal lost, especially through if you have a regular cable or whatever. I've had problems with that in the past where I've sent it through here, and I've lost some channels because the signal loss happens. So you have to kind of deal with that. But that's what this one does. And if that's what you need, a lot of them will do that. It's all depending on what you need and the prices. Now, I think this one, when I bought it, was $100, but this was quite a few years ago, and it was during a sale.
Okay.
So there you go.
So I'll start at the bottom. If all you need is more outlets with surge protection and he asked about noise filtering, electromagnetic and radio frequency interference, noise filtration. APC, again, I'm complete agreement with Tom. The only brand that I buy for myself is APC. So they have their P8V, which goes for between $35 and $40. So I don't think that's an exorbitant amount of money. The thing I really like about the P8V model is that it does not reduce the current at all. The full 15 amps goes through. So I actually really like to use that for being my surge protector on a subwoofer or on an amplifier, because a lot of times plugging those into something that does voltage regulation or battery backup or whatever doesn't play so nice with a lot of subwoofers and amplifiers. But I still like to have some just regular surge protection in case there's a lightning strike. The P8V does a great job for that for not a ton of money. So I like that. Now, for me, if I'm going to get anything that is more than just a simple surge protector with multiple outlets, I want battery backup. So their back UPS units, like they have their back UPS 550 that gives you 4 outlets that have battery backup and 4 outlets that just give you surge protection and noise filtration. For me, that's a great unit for plugging your modem or your router into, because when the power goes out, you don't lose your internet access. The battery keeps that running for at least a good half hour or so on a unit like that. They have ones that are a little bit more wattage, like the UPS 750, for example. But I like those $65 or so for the back UPS 550. So that's a nice thing to throw on there. Plug your modem and your Wi-Fi router into that. Then for home theater equipment, I really like their J-type series. Again, these are battery backups. So the J25 is about $250. That thing can keep like my whole theater actually up and running for a good 25 minutes. It's a solid battery in that thing. So I really like the J25. That's a huge value on that one. They also have their J35, which is $350. It adds voltage regulation and an even bigger battery. So if you do want voltage regulation, the J35 is out there for $350. It's not too crazy. But that's the equipment I would recommend and use myself.
There you go. Sam was ready to buy a 65-inch B6 series LG OLED TV, but he wanted to look at it in person first, so he dropped by his local Best Buy. When he talked to the Best Buy expert, that title was right on his name tag, so clearly he is, Sam was told to buy the Sony X8850 LCD rather than the LG OLED because of the following. There are a butt ton of reasons on here, so we are not going to read them all and then go back through them. We're going to read them and then comment on them as we go. So, number one, I can't keep the number. There's no numbers here, so I'm going to say number one, and then we're going to say next. Number one, cost. It's not a good bargain for the money, even though prices have been reduced. I mean, it's funny that anybody would say that Sony was the bargain choice of anything.
It's an objective fact that the X850 series size for size is less expensive than the LG OLED.
I can't argue that the Sony costs less. There's a lot of reasons. He says that the black levels are a negative. He says that this is a negative because it hurts the contrast in pictures. This is clearly a person that does not understand what black levels are.
Contrast is.
Or contrast, or how TVs work. So maybe not so much an expert as a...
That's just flat out wrong. That's just the opposite of true.
The opposite of true. Black levels is... Your black levels is what gives you your contrast. The darker the blacks, the brighter the lights, the more contrast you get. So if your black levels are really black, you have good contrast. If your black levels are not so
black,
good,
we can't even measure the contrast. It goes to infinity. Therefore, it must be bad.
Yes.
No. The black levels are very, very nice. That's what you're paying the extra money for, in fact, on the OLED.
Yeah.
More than anything.
The expert says the picture is not as good. You will rarely get the store's floor model demonstration quality in your home.
Yeah, I would hope not.
I hope not either. You'll be buying something you won't
much
see
better.
and is not noticeably better than less expensive 4K sets. Also, demonstrably, and by all reports of anybody who's ever seen them, not true. OLEDs have the best picture that is out there currently.
At the moment, yes. Yeah.
Currently. So, and God help you if you're trying to get the store's demonstration quality. Oh, you mean dynamic mode with everything in burn out my retinas? No, thank you.
And full soap opera effect.
He said side-by-side comparison. He said in his training they saw other sets compared side-by-side with the LG, and the LG did not produce colors accurately.
Then calibrate the thing.
Yeah, okay. Let me tell you, this is probably true, by the way. He probably did sit, or she, I'm not going to judge. They probably sat in a training and saw these, and they did not look as good. I will absolutely agree that was probably true. They were probably sitting in the break room, or maybe they were on the store floor with fluorescent lights everywhere and everything set to torch mode. And they looked at them and went, "Oh, look, you see, this one doesn't look as good." Not only that, if their manager is trying to get them to sell the Sonys because they get higher markup on them or better perks or whatever,
spiff.
Then
all about the spiff.
Then for sure. It is not only plausible, but very, very possible they went in and messed up the color settings anyways. So, and that by Best Buy, I have read people who have worked there writing about their time there, even as managers, and they'll say, yeah, they told us to do that. They told us, make this look worse so that your employees will sell the one we want them to sell. So, yeah, all these TVs can look bad. All of them can look good. The side-by-side comparison as far as colors are concerned, I cannot believe the OLED didn't look better. Can't believe it. Not if they were properly calibrated. Upscaling. The LGs are not as good as upscaling, not as good as Sony at least.
Now, there's some argument to be made there. Sony is very, very highly praised by very reputable
I
reviewers
believe
as
that.
having some very good upscaling. So
That being
that
said,
could be a legitimate thing.
we're talking like this is a game of inches right here. I mean, yes. First of all, what are you going to be watching with your 4K TV? With your new TV, are you going to be watching a lot of 1080p content because it's not real hard to upscale that? Are you going to be watching a lot of like old, VCR tapes?
VHS.
Then yeah, maybe you should get the Sony, or maybe you should just not buy a new TV and stop watching these old freaking tapes and go just watch them on your CRT because that's where they're going to look the best, anyways. Honestly, on the list of things I care about, upscaling is so far down the list.
Yeah.
Not only that,
lots of other devices in the signal chain that can do it too if you need it.
That's right. If you're really that concerned about it and you really find it to be that much of a problem, buy an Oppo. Everything goes through the Oppo, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Burn-in. The screen has burn-in problems. I don't really think this is an issue. I don't.
Again, we can't say that it's impossible.
It's not
for it to ever
impossible.
happen,
but this is the same crap they pulled with Plasma.
yeah.
Plasma has burn-in. LCD has not as wide viewing angles. Both were true at some point. Both stopped being true very quickly into their life cycle.
Well, LCD still has limited viewing angles.
But come on, dude. It's
gotten better.
It's in most situations, it's not anything to even be concerned about. It's like, oh, it looks a little weird off axis when I'm trying to watch it from the kitchen and I'm at like 170 degrees off axis. So yeah, of course it looks weird. It'll look weird anyways. You should get that anyways. Yes, technically it can burn in. It's not going to. Unreliable. This technology is new. It may have repair issues. It may also explode. It may get hit by a meteor. Shut up. That's what I would have told that guy. Or girl. I'm not judging. Not the best for watching sports, but is good with movies. I can't imagine a world in which OLED is worse at sports than LCDs would be.
That makes no sense.
It literally
I have
makes
no idea where they came up with
no
that.
sense. I mean, and why would the movies be any better? What is so special about sports? Do they not run in movies? Do they not throw things in movies? Do they zoom in and out in movies? Is there something that they do in sports that doesn't happen in a movie? I can't think of the thing that happens. Nope. Nothing. All right, Sony's XBR 850s and their 930s are better because they bring together the brightness of Samsung sets and the color of OLEDs. You mean the inaccurate colors that you were just talking about earlier?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Nice contradiction.
They have the perfect balance. They are also the very best at upscaling lower resolution in the opinion of the expert. This is kind of a summary of everything, but kind of not. Not an expert. Even if you have in some way misrepresented some of these things, in that you forgot what they were saying or whatever, or quoted them incorrectly, and that's fine. The objective fact is that OLED is better. It's just objectively better than LCDs.
More than any of that, if you come back next month, there is a very high likelihood they will be telling you that a Samsung is now the best, or a Toshiba is now the best, or whatever company is paying the highest spiff that month.
Yeah.
Because that's what it all comes down to. A spiff is basically a bonus, right? Best Buy employees don't work on commission, but you can get sales bonuses for hitting certain targets on certain products that offer a bonus for hitting a sales target. So guess who's paying a bonus this month? I'm guessing it's Sony.
Yeah, so Sam's not going to take the Best Buy salesperson's word, but all these comments they give him pause. And this is
which is a shame.
It is a shame.
Which is fair enough for Sam.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh.
But if he went with the Sony, he could get a 75-inch for the same price as 65-inch. So is the OLED really worth it, or does the Best Buy expert have a point? They don't have any really valid points to begin with, except for that
I would just urge you. I would urge anyone. CNET's television reviews that are written by David Katzenmeier. I have yet to disagree with that man, and I've learned a lot, actually. And he is a fully certified calibrator and has excellent test equipment. I mean, he explained why the X850 he wouldn't even recommend against like Vizios and Samsungs and things like that, because he's like, it doesn't have fantastic black levels, it doesn't have fantastic contrast. He would pick almost any other TV that's similarly priced above Sony's X850. Now, the X930 and X940, different story, but then you're not saving any money versus the OLEDs.
Which is pretty much what the selling point is. That's the only real point he had.
I rarely just give declarative sentences, but if you can afford the 65-inch B6 OLED, get it. It's the best TV at that price.
Yeah.
At that size.
All right. Brain the Vampire. It's a weird name.
Sticking.
It's a weird one.
It has stuck.
All right, Brain says he really appreciates us answering his initial questions last week. Apparently, he's not offended by me butchering his name. He took my advice and walked through a model home and spoke with the AV vendor. After doing so, he decided to just go with the wall-mounted flat panel and save the projector setup for a dedicated theater he wants to build in his basement in the future. He also made a typo last week. His budget for the AV setup in his great room is $15,000, not $5,000. That's a little bit of a typo, dude.
It makes a difference.
Not slight.
It makes a significant difference.
Yeah. For the layout, he has decided to have the large pixel window on his left. The right side will be completely open to the dining area and kitchen. The back wall has two smaller windows on either side of where his seating will go. I'm guessing the picture is up at this point.
It is, yes.
And the front wall separates the great room from the office. With the layout more or less settled, the AV vendor suggested 5-inch ceiling speakers, all from Speakercraft.
Of course they did.
Shocking. I wonder why. Oh, I remember. The Speakercraft has an incredible amount of markup. That's why. What are our opinions on his layout ideas and plans to go with the flat panel instead of a projector for now? I have no problems with you laying it out however you want to lay it out. This is fine.
Yeah. No, I think the layout makes absolutely perfect sense in this setup. It's not actually what either of us suggested last week, but this is a perfectly reasonable way to do things. One difference is he sent an updated drawing, so more or less is like this often happens with I guess this is a house design where there's multiple houses being built with a similar design. So this is like a mirror image of the diagram he had last week, but this is going to be the actual layout in his place. And the diagram that he showed last week, the wall going between the great room and the office was a smaller wall than what he's showing in this current diagram. So that was the reason I didn't think that in the initial diagram that he sent that was the best wall to put your display on, because it was kind of a short wall that didn't extend very much into the room. But this is a longer wall. It makes perfect sense. And again, if you went for the projection setup, either you have a really big, frame projection screen sitting on that wall, or if you do a drop down one, this is an 11-foot ceiling in this place.
Yeah.
That is a lot of drops. So I think your plan is fine.
Okay, what are our opinions of the AV's vendor suggestions of 5 in-ceiling speakers? I think they love to suggest that because people think it's cool to have their speakers all disappear and stuff like that.
Right?
Yeah, I hate it. Hate it a lot. Hate it in all the ways that you can hate things that you hate. It's literally the worst place. I would rather put the speakers on the floor, kind of angled up, than put them on the ceiling and try to angle them.
It is the very last resort.
It is the worst. And you have high ceilings on top of that. It is not going to sound like the TV. The sound is coming from the TV. And I will bet dollars to donuts you're going to be in there and go, you know what? I'm just going to use the TV speakers because this sounds weird.
People do.
This sounds weird.
Yeah. Now, in-ceiling speakers for the surrounds, like we said last week, okay with that. And that's not.
If you wanted to do some Atmos speakers up there, you could do that too. It's kind of a small room for it, but you could. I would probably not.
The front three, do not make the front three 11-foot high in-ceiling speakers.
No, I would not do that. No. So Brian isn't familiar with Speakercraft, and the AIM 8 series that was recommended include 5 different models. Should you go with the vendor's recommendation? If so, which? And no, don't go with the vendor's recommendation. No. First of all, don't do in-ceiling speakers in the front for sure. That is, just don't do that. So I got no problems with Speakercraft. They have a huge presence, like a huge presence with these guys because they have a lot of what they call points basically, and you walk through CDL, which is the custom installation yearly trade show, and Speakercraft has a massive booth, and they're they have these people holding signs that are like, earn money on your installs because, our speakers will cost you X and they retail for X plus a lot. So there's nothing wrong with Speakercraft speakers. They're perfectly fine speakers to put into things if you're not really going to listen to them ever. But
if you're going to put them all in the ceiling and go, gosh, that sounds like crap, I'm going to use the TV's built-in speakers, then hey, lots of profit.
Whole room audio, I'd be fine with these. Okay, if you're just looking for some background, whatever, you could do a lot better, but whatever. So
do a lot better for a lot less money.
I want to be honest with you. I don't. Okay, because I know, let's just go on. Brian's wife really wants the room to have a clean look. The previous house had visible speakers and wires, and she really, really wants to avoid that. So if all in-ceiling speakers aren't the way to go, whatever we suggest needs to be as close to invisible as possible. So what about suggestions? In-wall would be the next best way to do it. Flanking the TV on either side would be the next best way to do it. I'm actually going to say I don't think so. I think you should go with a nice 2-channel or 3-channel sound bar that's sort of attached to your TV so it looks like it's part of the TV. Your wife's okay with the TV. She's not okay with the speakers and the speaker wire. But if it looks like it's part of the TV, I think she'll be okay with this. You're sitting remarkably close to this thing. So if isn't he? Like,
no, he's like 13 feet away.
Oh, wait a second here. That's that big?
Yeah, that's 15 feet across.
Oh, I see it now. All right.
Yeah.
In-wall speakers are the way to go. And I would, I don't think, based on the size of this, is that going to be 15 feet the other way too, then, isn't it? It's probably going to have one big couch.
Yep. In that space in between the two windows on that wall. I mean, my basic thought here was very similar. If you go in-wall, I'm like, just get CAF. Because, like if your installer is not familiar and comfortable installing KEF, fire them and get a different installer.
Yeah, exactly.
Because KEF works with everybody.
But what is this thing? Okay, it's very hard for me to understand this drawing. It looks like there's a window on the left wall where the front right speaker would be. What is that? Is that like a door? Is it a pass-through? What is that?
I'm thinking that's an optional pass-through to the office, so you can see from the office into the great room or something.
Is that the office back? Is that what that thing is right there? I thought that was like the front door. It looks like the front door.
Oh, maybe it is. Maybe that's the entry. Maybe that's why it's an optional light, an optional window. Okay, yeah, that could be the entry.
Because that's where you're going to want to put your right speaker. And if there is nothing there, then we have a new problem to deal with.
Right, yeah. If there's a window there in the way, that obviously you can't put an in-wall or even an on-wall speaker over a window, then yeah. But if you can just make that a wall, then yeah. I mean, I would suggest KEF for in-walls. If you're going to go on-wall, which is another option, because it doesn't have to be a soundbar. You could do some nice, slender on-wall speakers that are on either side of the TV and one center below it. I really like Golden Ear, which is another company that works with tons of installers, and installers love them. And if your installer doesn't want to install Golden Ear, fire them and hire somebody else, because they should.
Yeah.
So those are two brands. Now another brand that's really worth looking at is Snap AV. They don't sell directly to consumers, but they again sell to installers. To me, that's a much better sounding speaker at a much lower price than Speakercraft. Yeah. So options there. 3 really good companies to come at this any way that you want to. But yeah,
I would highly recommend that you try to make the in-wall speakers work. So you could put them flanking on either side of the TV and out a little bit if you can make it work, and then one underneath the TV for your center channel. If you really don't want to do that, you could get rid of the center channel and just run a Phantom. That's fine. I would go very minimalistic in here. I would get like a Marantz slimline receiver, and just try to make it as easy as possible for you to make this thing work. And I would go with in-walls because you can paint the grills, and happy wife is happy life. So getting the grills painted and making them look exactly, like they're blending into the wall is going to make her happy. It's also going to stop her from moving them. Okay? And that's what my mom used to do. She used to push the speakers back when they were on stuff. She'd push them so she couldn't see them anymore. I'm like, if you can't see them, they're not in line of sight, Ma. You need... So, believe me, you just put them in the wall if you can. As far as subwoofers are concerned, did we get to the subwoofer question, or did I not
That's
read
the
that?
final one.
Right. What about the subwoofers considered the SVS a PB12 plus placed towards the front left corner? Should they consider something even bigger? You are never going to get your wife to agree to she's going to see the PB12 plus and she is going to divorce you. So that is not an option. You are going to take a PC2000 and you're going to put it in either the front left or the back.
A cylinder?
Yeah.
Maybe. I was thinking, what about one of those new SB16 Ultras?
Dude, I have a feeling there's. I think it's too big. That big box is yes, okay. That's what he needs for sure.
Yeah.
But I think the Ultra, or maybe the Ultra Series cylinders as well.
PC
because they have a
Ultra,
flat top on them. You're like, it is a speaker and a plant stand. Okay, honey? It's a plant stand. You can put whatever you want up there as long as it doesn't actually have water in it. You put whatever you want up there. And it's just going to be off in the corner. Like, you could put a lamp on it, or something. Anything that you want on there. I think that is the solution. Your cylinder subs are your solution because you'll be able to dress them up and make them look like, a stand of some sort.
I mean, hey, I love cylinders, so I'm not gonna say no to that.
That's what I think.
But I agree that PB12 Plus that's a monster. There's nowhere to hide or camouflage that. It is massive.
Yeah, it's way too big. And before you buy any box sub from anybody, you have to build the box. You have to build the box. Yeah. This is a perfect time of year, Christmas. You'll have lots of cardboard lying around. Hey, if you need some cardboard, come to my house. I've got oodles of it from the crap we threw away this weekend. Build yourself the actual size of the box and then look at it and go, holy crap, it is a coffee table, but bigger and 250 pounds. Time-wise, we are done, so I'm going to end because I'm sweating. So usually I would go late.
Wow, do we have a lot left over.
That's okay. Timothy, Josh, Jim, Travis, James, Colin, John, Nathan. Holy crap, we do have a lot. But they're all really short questions. We should be able to power through these very quickly next week. We will get to you next week. If you sent your question on Monday, we haven't got to it yet. I know that somebody sent in something about talking us up to somebody. I don't remember who it was. We do want to thank our listeners a week one more time, Andrew, Joshua, and Mark, for their donations. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Andrew, Joshua, Mark, thank you so much for sending in those donations.
Terry, Bob, David, and Byron for talking us up to the various manufacturers.
Yeah, Terry, Bob, David, Lieutenant Commander Byron. I like that so much. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you chatting us up to manufacturers and vendors.
That's right. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You go to www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment there, where you can also give us a PayPal donation, which will help support the podcast, as some of our listeners did this week. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. Twitter, Facebook.com. Anyway, that's right. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can email us at rob@avrant, tom@avrant, Twitter @FirstReflect for Rob @avrant _Tom for me, and at Austin TEN Pond for Austin, our producer, who helps us put together the podcast questions every week, and he answers the question, not answers, but monitors the question at avrant.com podcast. He has his own, the website. Email. Yeah. Thank you. Dang it.
That's the word.
It's been happening to me all night. It's really driving me nuts. But I am quite tired. He has his own podcast, the We Watch Movies podcast. That podcast is about LCD headlamps.
Is that a thing?
LED headlamps?
LED headlamps.
That's what I said,
yes.
Isn't it? LED headlamps?
You said LCD, which not utterly impossible.
Well,
someone could use an LCD in some fashion in a headlamp. Be a little bit strange.
No.
Pretty sure you meant LED.
I think I meant LED. Now, they don't actually do any reviews on the... This is the thing that confused me about the podcast when I listened to it the first time. Is that they don't actually do any reviews of the headlamps. They basically don't like them, I guess. And it's just a podcast making fun of people who wear them. And the different models that are out there.
Those type of... Like headlamps.
Yeah, headlamps.
I thought you meant... like LED headlamps on a car.
No, like a headlamp, like a thing you wear on your head.
Gotcha.
Especially the ones that they really don't like, the ones that they like it's in the brim of your hat. I don't know why. It's a very strange podcast. A lot of, I think, misplaced anger, if I have to be honest with you. I don't know. Austin's got some
transference from something else.
I don't know. It's probably some Freudian excuse for it. All right. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
I still get pomegranate emails, by the way. It still happens.